Hello, I'm here today to give you a book tip, and the book I want to talk about is this one, En pingles dagbok by Jeff Kinney. And obviously, Jeff Kinney is not a Norwegian author, right? So this book is a translation. I'm going to be talking about that towards the end of the video, so hold with me. Why do I recommend this book? I think this book is just brilliant because it's so funny and witty and light, right? This is not Henrik Ibsen, right? This is not any kind of serious literature, as you might call it. You might know it if you have kids, or you might know it from your own days, because this has been on the market for a while in many languages. And it's one of the books that actually get kids to reading. So why not us adults, right? We can do the same. We can go for the easy read, and it's really funny and it's kind of refreshing. And it has a lot of pictures and big letters. I'll show that. So it's also rewarding because one of the worst things is, you see, big letters, a lot of spaces between, a lot of pictures. One of the worst things is when we read and read and read, and it takes us ages to read a page, even because there are so many letters on the page, right? It really, like, the layout really plays a role. So this has a kind of fake diary layout, and that's perfect for language learners because there's a lot of space and it's easy and quick to get through a page, so we're progressing more quickly, and that's rewarding. That's something we want. And it's actually possible to finish the book, right? And then we have finished and we're like, I've read a book, right? And it's done. It's not so thick either. And it's something to think of, like what the book looks like, what the pages look like as well, right? So that's one reason. Another reason is that it contains a lot of everyday language. So many times when we read fiction, we're like, okay, these words, these adjectives, these descriptions, is this really how people speak, right? And often it is not. But here there are many phrases, many sentences that are immediately usable, applicable in real life. There are some bad words as well, as you might know, right? So it's kind of funny in that way. We learn how people speak, right? So the language material is good as well. And one point that I promised I'll talk about is the fact that this is a translation, isn't it? This is not a Norwegian book. It's in Norwegian because it's a translation, and it's a good translation for that matter. So the language is quite natural. It's good, and my original degree is in translation studies, so I have to go quite a far way to actually say about something that this is a good translation, and I like this one. So take it from me. And very often when we get book recommendations in language courses or whatever, we only get recommended Norwegian authors, right? Original works. And it might seem that it's logical, it makes sense, because sometimes we feel like, like, why should we read this in Norwegian when we can read it in English or in my own language? But maybe you can read it because you want to boost your Norwegian, right? You want to read in Norwegian. And then if you have to choose between like Henrik Ibsen and this, I say go for this, right? Don't try to read Henrik Ibsen even in as an easy reader or something. It's gonna be difficult. It's not gonna be so relatable. Of course, if you're interested and you're at a higher level, definitely go for the classics as well, because there are many good Norwegian authors, and many of the classics are good as well. But they are not so motivational, and they are not an everyday read for everybody, right? So, as far as I'm concerned, it's a very clever idea to go for the Norwegian translation of a book that you actually know from another language, or you can read it in another language first, and then it's gonna make it much easier to read the Norwegian version without having to stop to look for vocabulary and everything, because you'll know what it's about in the first place, and that's gonna help you, that's gonna carry you through the book. So it's very good. And talking about notes, there is something I want to show you in this book. This book, I got it in Deichmanske bibliotek. I borrowed it, and you see many people have read it before me. It's in a bad shape. But the interesting thing is, if you look at page 1 or like page 7, but the first page of the text, you will see, I hope it's visible, there are a lot of notes, like here, or here, here, everywhere, right? And that's something that happens quite a lot when people try to read books in another language. Look here, so many notes. Here, 3 notes on every line, right? And what do you think? Is it like that throughout the whole book? No, obviously not. These notes, they end on page, the last one is on page 14. And the book starts on page 7. So 7 pages of intensive notes, and then done. So there are 2 ways we can look at this. Number 1, the person doing this understood that this leads nowhere and then just read on. Or theory number 2, the person gave up after 7 pages, right? So this tells us something about this looking up words as well, right? So for me, a much better strategy would be to get this book in English, which should be quite easy, and just read it. Read the whole book or read a chapter. Don't do mirror reading, like comparing every sentence. That's gonna make you crazy as well. But read it for fun. You're gonna remember more than you think. And then read the Norwegian one in a week's time or something like that. Or read 10 pages and then in Norwegian, right? Take bigger chunks so that you know what you're reading about. And it's gonna make it easier kind of to resist the temptation to look up every word. So that's the book tip from me, because I'm all about listening all the time. So I think it's good to give a book tip every now and then as well. And some tips are about how to approach it. I hope you like it. You can get it in any Deichmanske bibliotek or any other bibliotek, right? And that's for free. I think you know that. So it's worth doing. Right. Good luck with your reading.